What's good? It's Woog. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you were into the fight talk. We have Gervonta "Tank" Davis, 26 wins and 0 losses, taking on Rolly Romero, 14 wins and 0 losses. Gervonta Davis is currently holding a regular, kind of one of the lesser lightweight titles, 135. I thought the WBA, by the way, was going to kind of clean that up division by division. They haven't done that yet at 135, where you have George Kambosos, about to defend, all of the belts against Devin Haney, who's holding a lesser WBC title. But with the WBA sanctioning body, you've got George Kambosos currently holding the super title, and then you have Gervonta Davis holding this lesser title, which he has now retained over the course of a couple of fights. He had won it against George Kambosos. I don't even know why a lesser belt was vacant for Gervonta Davis versus George Kambosos, but then he defended it successfully against Leo Santa Cruz, and then most recently against Isaac Cruz. So Gervonta "Tank" Davis is one of the most exhilarating and just phenomenal looking youngish talents in the sport, has been now for a few years. The issue that's been going on with him, and you can kind of see it coming from like a mile away, just given the talent per promotional body for certain divisions, is that as amazing as he is and as amazing as his performances have been, PBC, his promoter, Mayweather Promotions, is with PBC. They fight on Showtime and sometimes Fox. And with Gervonta Davis, it's been pay-per-view for his last few fights. But his promoter doesn't hold the lion's share of the talent in the division. So all of the guys that we have been wanting to see him fight at 135, just like we had wanted to see him fight down at 130, where he was actually holding a legit belt, one that he had won off of Jose Pedraza, which some are still calling the most significant win of his career. I think that either Leo Santa Cruz or Isaac Cruz has either matched or maybe even eclipsed that. But he had won a legit belt, IBF belt, against Jose Pedraza. But then for the several fights after that, he was fighting guys who were not Vasily Lomachenko, who were not the guys who we wanted to see him fight at 130. And the same has more or less been the case at 135. And he even flirted up at 140, fighting Mario Barrios, who we most recently saw lose a decision against Keith Thurman. So they've had to get super creative with Gervonta Davis's matchmaking to kind of cover up the fact that they actually don't have the opponents that would give Gervonta Davis the fights that matter. So this fight against Rolando Romero is kind of seen as being an exciting opponent because Rolando Romero, if nothing else, he hits very hard. 12 out of his 14 wins have come via knockout, and he talks more trash than just about anybody in the sport. He is up there in the top 5 or 1 percentile when it comes to just reckless trash talking. He's just talking trash about anybody, and his style of trash talking, it ranges from funny to cringe to, is this guy really crazy? It's kind of interesting. I'm still not quite sure what to make of Rolando Romero, and then decoupling the trash talk versus the actual skills and ability. But with Gervonta Davis, it's been exhilarating, but at the same time frustrating. And now his promotional situation has gone to the point where it looks like this might be his last fight on Mayweather Promotions. Now, this is just based on some of the stuff that's been said on social media, and then some of the comments made by Floyd Mayweather, Leonard Ellaby, the guys running, Mayweather Promotions, that have kind of insinuated that this might indeed be Davis's last fight with Mayweather Promotions. I'm not going to say that it's a foregone conclusion, though. We don't know if he's going to re-up and then re-sign with Mayweather Promotions, or if he's going to stay with PBC under the larger PBC umbrella, but just outside of Mayweather Promotions. We don't know how this is going to shake out, let alone whether he's going to sign with like a top rank, which most don't sign with top rank after they've achieved pay-per-view status. From Oscar De La Hoya to Floyd Mayweather to Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao took a lot longer to break from Bob Arum top rank, but the trend has become, once somebody achieves true superstar status, that they then remove themselves from top rank. So I don't see Davis going to top rank, let alone Matchroom, Eddie Hearn. So we don't know what's going to happen with his future contractually. it matters in terms of who he's likely going to be able to fight going forward, but we just don't have any evidence that are pointing us in any specific direction. So I don't want to speculate too much on that. What we do know is that he has been one of the best talents in the sport. He's got top 10 pound for pound ability. Shoot, I think he's got top 5 pound for pound ability, but he doesn't have the opponent quality fight over fight to merit, in my opinion, that type of rankings. Like, some people have put him in their top 10, like Ak and Barak on the DAZN boxing show. They have him in their top 10. I personally don't have him in mind, but I do think that he has absolutely elite talent. And even after that reign at 130, if you could even call it a reign, I mean, he won one share of the title. It was the IBF belt, defended that a couple times. Then he actually lost that and then regained a different sanctioning body's belt. So he had the IBF belt for a couple fights, and then he missed weight before his fight against, I want to say, Francisco Fonseca. And then he earned another share of the 130-pound title against Jesus Cuellar. So he's been the IBF 130-pound title holder, and then he's been the WBA 130-pound title holder. So many had him as the best 130-pound fighter, but he didn't really like collect all the belts or fight all of the other best fighters at 130. So we could give him the eyeball nod and say, yeah, he's the best, but he didn't actually prove it in the ring. So after the stint at 130, he went up to 135 and he fought Yorkis Gamboa. That's where he won that WBA regular lightweight title. And Yorkis Gamboa by this time was like 38 years old. Since then, we've seen Gamboa get dominated by Devin Haney and then get obliterated, knocked down several times before getting stopped by Isaac Cruz. So I can't make too much of Davis's win over Yorkis Gamboa, even though I think Gamboa was still more fresh against Davis than he was against, Devin Haney, because he also had like an Achilles tear or some Achilles issue. But I think that Gamboa was better against Davis than he was against Devin Haney and certainly against Isaac Cruz. But since going to 135, the division that he's currently campaigning in, he's beaten Leo Santa Cruz, which was probably his most spotlighted fight because of how good Leo Santa Cruz has been over the years. He's been a several division, champion, although many thought that he was a little bit out of his depths fighting at 130. So let me dial that back. Leo Santa Cruz actually fought Gervonta Davis at 130, not 135, but it was odd. Both belts, both Davis's 135-pound belt as well as Leo Santa Cruz's 130-pound title, they were both on the line here. And then it was actually a competitive fight where it was a lot of back and forth. I mean, there were several moments and a couple rounds that I would have given to Leo Santa Cruz because of his volume. I was interested to see how Gervonta Davis would handle the volume of Leo Santa Cruz, where Santa Cruz just has this downpour of activity as the rounds continue. And I know that Davis isn't the most voluminous puncher, so I thought it was going to be interesting to see how he coped with that, especially if Leo Santa Cruz started landing flush on Gervonta Davis. Going into the fight, yeah, I thought that this was a very interesting matchup. Even if Leo Santa Cruz was at his best down at 126 or even down at 122. And the odds going into Tank Davis versus Leo Santa Cruz reflect that this was seen to be a very interesting and competitive fight on paper. Davis against Santa Cruz was only a minus 300 favorite, and Leo Santa Cruz was like a plus 225 underdog. So it was like a 3-1 and then 2-1 ratio of a favorite or underdog with Santa Cruz, which were actually like the closest odds that he's had, I believe, in his entire career. Mario Barrios's odds were kind of close to that. Although by the time Davis Santa Cruz actually took place, the odds had kind of widened to where Tank Davis was more of a minus 600 favorite. So maybe the market kind of corrected itself, said, wait a second, Davis should win this fight against the smaller Leo Santa Cruz. But still, it was a very interesting fight, even as it was playing out with, Davis taking some incoming fire, taking a lot of punches from Santa Cruz in certain moments of the fight. But this one ended with Santa Cruz kind of getting a little over his skis. Santa Cruz will, continuously throw punches. Like, look at his classics against Carl Frampton. Look at his fights against Abner Mares. Santa Cruz has been against Kiko Martinez. He's just an avalanche of activity, kind of a skilled boxer puncher who likes to, kind of shake his gloves and then throw 3 to 5 punches at a time and then just kind of keeps on coming because he is so well conditioned. Well, Gervonta Davis, unfortunately for Santa Cruz, timed him perfectly as Santa Cruz came in a little too hot, one too many times, and got blasted with a left uppercut that put his lights out. It was pretty shocking to see a fighter the caliber of Leo Santa Cruz get knocked out like that. And, revisionist history might have it to where Davis doesn't get the full credit for that blistering knockout against Santa Cruz because of the weight division disparity and things like that. But no, we had never seen Leo Santa Cruz get hit with anything near that type of devastating shot, to the point where people were wondering, should Santa Cruz retire after getting knocked out that badly? Like, it was as bad as Amir Khan getting knocked out by Canelo Alvarez, one of those knockouts of the year candidates. In fact, I think it came down to, either Davis's knockout of Santa Cruz or Povetkin's knockout over Dillian White. Those were pretty much the two knockouts of 2020. So Davis comes out of that fight looking pretty damn dangerous, as he always does. I mean, 24 out of his 26 wins have come via knockout. He is one of the hardest punchers, pound for pound, in the sport. And I also think that his boxing is very underrated. And that came into light when he fought against the bigger 140-pound, who's actually also fought at 147, Mario Barrios, where this was another interesting matchup where most thought that Davis should pull it off, but it's like, I don't know. We just saw Canelo Alvarez fight Dimitri Bivol, and sometimes when the guy is just bigger and is also a skilled fighter, strange things can happen. So I didn't know how this one was going to turn out. In fact, I think I actually might have picked Mario Barrios to win that fight via decision. But Gervonta Davis came in and he was having trouble in the first half of the fight, to the point where his mentor, his promoter, Floyd Mayweather, is actually advising him from outside on the ring apron, basically saying, hey man, you got to get busy. The unofficial scorecard has you down like halfway into the fight. Davis looks at Floyd and says like, what? And then Floyd Mayweather's like, yeah, that's what's going on. Do you want me to lie to you, or do you want me to be straight up with you? And then it seemed like after that point, Gervonta Davis kind of kicked it into higher gear. He might have lost another round or two after that point, but he started to take over like in the 8th and 9th round, to where he dropped Mario Barrios in the later rounds and then finally finished him in the 11th round. So another thing about Gervonta Davis is not only does he have that devastating power, but he's not only scoring early knockouts against guys like Hugo Ruiz, Jesus Cuellar, Liam Walsh, 3rd round knockout, Ricardo Nunez, 2nd round knockout, but he's also scoring late round knockouts, knocking out Mario Barrios in the 11th round, knocking out Yorkis Gamboa in the 12th round, knocking out Francisco Fonseca in the 8th round. He stopped Jose Pedraza in the 7th round. So he, like Jermell Charlo, has power that carries late into fights, which is a very scary proposition for the opposition. So Tank Davis pulls it off against Mario Barrios, who again fought to the distance, the complete 12 rounds, against Keith Thurman, formerly one of the absolute best at welterweight. So again, Gervonta Davis has outsized punching power. He had outsized punching power at 130, and it seems like he has that at 135 as well. So then his next fight was against Isaac Cruz, who we just saw obliterate Yorkis Gamboa. And in that fight, Isaac Cruz, it was a different height dynamic for Gervonta Davis. He's used to being one of the, being the shorter fighter in the ring, standing at like 5'5.5" with a 67.5-inch reach. Well, in this case, he was just a shade taller than Isaac Cruz, who I believe is like 5'5". No, he's actually listed at 5'4" with a 63-inch reach. So Isaac Cruz is a very short fighter. So Gervonta Davis didn't have the same punch trajectory and angle dynamic that he normally has, even though Yorkis Gamboa was also a shorter fighter. But, Leo Santa Cruz, taller than Davis. Mario Barrios, definitely taller than Gervonta Davis. Isaac Cruz, not the case. So Isaac Cruz was kind of doing this thing where even though he's 5'4", he fights even shorter than that because he kind of crouches before exploding high. And he was kind of lowering his head as Gervonta Davis was trying to find the clean openings to let his hands go. Now, one thing that I realized watching Davis versus Isaac Cruz is Isaac Cruz is he's a rugged fighter who likes to muddy the waters and kind of get into those phone booth style fights where the bullets are flying on both sides. Whereas Gervonta Davis, for all the punching power that he has, and he has like very fast hands as well. I think he has, for instance, faster hands than, say, Devin Haney, who also has pretty fast hands. I think that he has like B+, A- level hand speed. I think Davis has A-, maybe flat A hand speed. And I'm just talking per punch. But Gervonta Davis doesn't like the rugged style of fight, or at least that seemed to be the case against Isaac Cruz, because Isaac Cruz likes to come in and then just get inside and then stay in your chest, let his hands go. Gervonta Davis seems to like a cleaner pocket where he's able to time you coming in, and you get the impression that Isaac Cruz doesn't mind if there's an incidental head clash. Just the style of fight makes it look like, damn, are you not even worried about us like smacking heads or just this fight getting really bloody and ugly? Gervonta Davis seems like he's a little bit more mindful of those unfortunate clashes happening, to where he likes a little bit of space to let his nice, very accurate and devastatingly hard and fast power punches go. So that dynamic kind of played out as you got Isaac Cruz trying to come in on Davis. Davis kind of taking a step back, trying to jab, and then set up the nice angled shot to try to catch Isaac Cruz coming in. I thought it took Davis a couple rounds to figure that out, but I thought that he had it mapped out pretty much by the third or fourth round, to where I thought that he was winning all of the middle rounds until he apparently hurt his signature left hand. And it looked like he hurt it against the top-ish part of Isaac Cruz's head. So beyond that point, you got about 3 to 4 rounds where it seemed like Gervonta Davis didn't throw like one punch with that left hand, at least not one meaningful punch with the left hand. So you basically had Isaac Cruz continuously still coming in more emboldened. I don't know if Isaac Cruz really knew how injured Gervonta Davis's left hand seemed to be, but as a viewer, that definitely seemed to be the case as far as what I was seeing. So I saw Isaac Cruz continue to come in against Davis, and now you've got a one-handed Davis who's jabbing, hooking, isn't able to throw, again, his power hand, and is basically saying matador. He's like jab, hook, move, jab, and that display of boxing, even though I thought Isaac Cruz won most of those late rounds against Davis, which actually made the scorecard super close, to where some thought or think that Isaac Cruz should have edged a decision. I thought Gervonta Davis should have edged a decision. But I thought that it was close. I thought it was like 7 rounds to 5, 8 rounds to 4-ish. But Davis was certainly having issues in those later rounds. Again, I don't think it would have played out like that if he still had 2 healthy hands to deal with. But Isaac Cruz is coming in, and I thought that Davis's one-handed display showed me that, yes, he is a very good technical boxer. He showed me that against Mario Barrios. He showed me that again after the injury. Well, even before the injury, when he started to take over and win the rounds against Cruz, and even after the injury, when he still was able to survive and keep the rounds at least somewhat competitive, where he wasn't getting badly hurt in those rounds because of his defense, his movement, and his boxing IQ. So I have to readjust, and I have done this a few times with Davis now. I knew that he was a gifted power puncher. I knew that he had fast hands, but he is really showing fight over fight his boxing acumen as well. Even if he does lose rounds in some of these fights like he did against Mario Barrios. But now the pound for pound talent that is Gervonta Davis is about to take on this rambunctious, young, brash Rolando Romero, which, again, look, I saw him get outboxed by Jackson Mariñez like 3 fights ago, and they robbed him on the scorecards. They robbed Jackson Mariñez, and then Jackson Mariñez in his next fight, unfortunately for him, got properly knocked out by Richard Comey. So that's like a tough outcome for those 2 fights for Jackson Mariñez. He hasn't been in the ring since that, I want to say, February 2021 knockout loss to Richard Comey, who we saw get beaten up pretty damn badly in a decision loss against Vasily Lomachenko. But Rolando Romero, he was fighting, just a couple years ago, literally just a couple years ago, he was fighting 6-rounders and then he had a 8-rounder against Arturs Almedas, and then he TKO'd him in the second round. This is February 2020, and this was on the, I want to say the Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury 2 fight. So this is the Wilder versus Fury fight after their draw, where Wilder was still the champion, the WBC champ, and the A-side fighter. So Rolly has like a scheduled for 8 rounds coming out party against Almedas, where they're like, who is this Rolly Romero kid? And then it was his next fight against Jackson Mariñez, where he seemed to get outclassed, but he, being like the A-side fighter who they were kind of looking to elevate, got a lot of love on the scorecards and was kind of gifted a decision win over Jackson Mariñez. And then he fights back-to-back fights against Avery Sparrow and Anthony Yiggett, knocks them both out. So he is showing prodigious punching power. He throws from interesting angles too, which a lot of people think that's going to be a stylistic issue for Gervonta Davis. Davis, again, is about 5'5.5". Rolly Romero is about 5'8". But if you were to ask me, what do I expect out of Gervonta Davis versus Rolando Romero, there are too many stylistic fundamental flaws that I'm seeing in Rolly Romero that just make me see this fight in no other way than Gervonta Davis delivering another devastating knockout, but this time to Rolly Romero. Like, even when Rolly Romero throws a jab, which he has a nice, powerful jab, and I hope that in his camp he's working on the defense while he throws a jab, because his chin is so high and his posture is so squared up, where he's throwing a hard jab, but it's almost like he's got this like kind of a recoil before he throws it, where it's like, it's coming back a little bit before it goes forward. But I have also seen instances where he does just flick it out. But again, it's not a flicking jab. It's a pretty hard jab. But his chin is so upright where he's throwing the jab and he's not keeping his hand high. He's keeping his hands here often. And then he's throwing a hard jab. And then when he throws the overhand right, he is totally selling out. He is totally selling out, and it's because he hasn't been fighting guys that can take his head off. So he's basically throwing some of these power punches with reckless abandon, throwing a mean overhand right, throwing a mean follow-up left hook, a sweeping left hook. He throws a little bit to the body as well, but he's mostly a headhunter. And I just don't see how somebody who's got the boxing IQ, coupled with the absolute elite gifts and talent of Gervonta Davis, I don't see how they don't just send Rolly Romero's chin to the upper deck somewhere. Like, how else can this play out other than a mean uppercut from Gervonta Davis, or a mean straight left hand to finish the fight, or at least to rock Rolly Romero? Yes, it's going to be interesting to see how Davis defends against Rolly Romero and his just wild, hard punches coming from those angles. It is going to be something to see. But beyond that, when this fight settles into a boxing match, I think it's going to be, I think that Gervonta Davis is going to dominate. I don't see this going past like the 6th round. It might not go past like the 3rd or 4th round, unless it just starts off being a very tepid and patient fight where Gervonta Davis is really taking his time trying to figure out the angles and such. But I don't necessarily think it's going to take him that damn long. That's not to say Rolly Romero, again, is not a talented fighter. I just think that on the career trajectory, he should be where Edgar Berlanga is in terms of who you're fighting and what your step-up caliber of opponents is. Like, I think that Rolly Romero should be fighting the equivalent of a Steve Rolls, or even less than that, because we saw Steve Rolls fight a few early entertaining rounds with Triple G, right? But Rolly Romero, it makes me wonder, if this is Gervonta Davis's last fight on Mayweather Promotions, why would Floyd Mayweather then, and Leonard Ellerbe and team, then put one of their last remaining pseudo stars, because they don't have that deep of a roster in terms of elite fighters? Like, go ahead and see for yourself. Gervonta Davis has kind of been their golden goose in a lot of ways. So why give one of your most promising talents and feed him to the elite Gervonta Davis? Like, do they actually think that Romero has a good chance at beating Davis? I mean, the odds makers don't. I'm not even so sure that Rolly Romero really believes that Rolly Romero can win this fight. Because, again, I haven't been able to really reconcile the trash talk because he hasn't fought any elite fighters, but he's talking like he's Muhammad Ali. I just don't know what to make of Rolando Romero. I think that it would be so much more appropriate if he was fighting somebody like the level of like maybe a Javier Fortuna. But, you know, if Rolly Romero was to fight Javier Fortuna, even though Fortuna might be outside of his prime, I would probably still favor Javier Fortuna. I'd favor Jojo Diaz against Rolando Romero at this point. So I don't really know what's going on with Mayweather Promotions. I know that this is it's an exciting fight in that it will probably deliver on its entertainment value. But in terms of like actual competitiveness, I think that this is a mismatch. And I think that I would expect this to end very badly for Rolando Romero. I just hope it's one of those things where he gets knocked down and is able to kind of negotiate his way out and kind of like maybe you could have gotten up, but you acted like you were a little bit more hurt than you were. Kind of like we saw with like Bruce Seldon getting knocked out by Mike Tyson, or where the guy is not totally out of it, but they're just acting like they're a little bit more disoriented than they are. Something like that, to where the ref looks at the guy and then just waves his hand and calls it off. I hope this, for Rolando Romero, for the young, rambunctious, and quite frankly, just brave to be, fighting this fight against Tank Davis. I hope he doesn't get completely wrecked, because I wouldn't be surprised if he does. Yes, he does have kind of a puncher's chance, but I don't think it's much of a puncher's chance, because again, I think that he did spark Anthony Yiggett, and Anthony Yiggett's a pretty decent fighter, so that was probably his most impressive win, knocking out Yiggett in the 7th round. But he does kind of telegraph his punches, and he just doesn't seem to defend well while he's in the motion of punching. Like when he's on the attack, his chin just seems like it's so exposed, and I don't know how you patch that up. I don't know how you go from being a C-level sweet science fighter to an A-level sweet science fighter overnight. And maybe, to be competitive with Gervonta Davis, given Romero's like punching power, maybe you only need to be a B sweet science level fighter if you have great punching power. But I don't think Romero is there. I don't think he's a B level boxing IQ, sweet science, technically defensive fighter. And I just see that combination of issues being a big problem in this Gervonta Davis versus Rolando Romero fight. But yeah, let me know what you think about this one. Are you giving Rolando Romero a realistic chance in this fight? Because again, anything could happen, true. But I'm just looking at this one like scratching my head like, ooh, I just don't get it. I don't get why Rolly Romero would put himself in this situation rather than doing some sort of a more measured career building fight by fight, opponent by opponent type of schedule. I'm not quite clear on what's going on here, but it might, there are going to be fireworks. I do think that that's the case. But yeah, let me know what you think is going to happen between Davis and Romero, and what do you think, and this is more or less a guess, what do you think Davis's career path forward is going to be after this fight? Is he going to leave Mayweather Promotions? How do you see him forging his path forward? Because I do think that Gervonta Davis does want to fight guys like Ryan Garcia, the winner of Kambosos and Devin Haney, Vasily Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez, like the fights that matter. Let me know what you think in the comments, and please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.